welcome to another up close video. This one is on a brand new release from Tonic and their Media Die range. There's 5 new sets of dies, but I don't think I showed you the previous release that Tonic did of their Media Dies as well, so I'm just going to quickly show you them. They were 3 sets of words that they brought out. You had Eat, Sleep, Dance, Craft or Shop, Repeat. And then you've got Welcome to the Family, Welcome to the World, Welcome to the Madhouse, and then Live, Laugh, Love as well. And yeah, so these were the ones that they brought out in between my previous video and what this video will be. And the Tonic Media Dies, they cut through thicker materials than a normal, like a standard thickness of a thin metal cutting die. Like, so they can cut through the grey board that comes on the back of, like, envelopes that keep your cardstock flat. You can cut through that really thick cardstock. You can even cut through leather and acetate and balsa wood, all that kind of thicker material. Even that really thick felt that you can cut through with media dies. They're in this sort of coppery colour rather than silver, so you can easily tell them apart. And when you look at the cutting edges, I'll show you it on the other ones in a second, they're really deep, so you can see how they can cut the really thick materials. Also, when you're cutting with them, the sandwich to use with the tangerine is the green plate and the white plate, and you have to use a metal shim. Tonic do an A5 one, or you can use any one that you have, like from previous things that you've bought it for. And you want to make sure the die is cutting into the metal shim, because if you cut this really thick cutting edge straight into your cutting plate of your machine, it's going to create a really big gouge into the plate, and then whatever else you cut on top of it is you're gonna get an impression, because it's going to be such a big groove left in your plate, if that makes sense. So you definitely want to make sure you have the metal shim as well. I'll make sure that's linked down below. And also I'm trying out the picture link system. So for these videos where I just do an up close look at something, usually I just put the links in the video description because I don't usually do blog posts, but I think from now on I'm going to try and do corresponding blog posts that have all of the products in picture link form, so you can easily see like which die set you want from the pictures, rather than having to read the description and try and figure out which one's which. Yeah, so, and this one is called Live, Laugh, Love, this one is called The Welcome Sentiment, and this one is called Eat, Sleep, Repeat for those ones. So let's get on to the new die sets. So as I said before, there's 5 new die sets. They work exactly the same way as all of the other media die sets that Tonic have brought out. We have Cupid Collection, Distressed Geometric, Sensational Swirls, Made to Measure, and Beautiful Birdcages as well. They're really gorgeous dies. I haven't quite used all of them. I think there's only 3 dies out of the Made to Measure one that I haven't used, but I will show you my 6 samples that I've done with them as well once I've gone through the die sets. So I'll take each one out of the packet so you can really see what they look like. And on the front of the packaging of all of them you get a small little image so you know exactly what all the dies are, because some of them are hidden within the packaging. But these are the actual bigger sort of size of the dies, and you can see how enormously thick that cutting edge is. Have I got another normal die out? I haven't got another normal die out, but you can really see how thick the cutting edge is. Even just that piercing detail, look how deep the metal is, so it really does go through thick materials. But I mean, look at that, you can still cut like a small little arrow out, but you've got that massive thick cutting edge, so you can cut through the thicker material. And they cut really easily, like especially with the tangerine. I think a lot of thick dies, well, for example these ones, the Distressed Geometric, you'd think cutting that out of something thick you'd have to run it back and forth a few times to get it to cut through, but this is just once through the tangerine with the sandwich combination I said, the white plate, the green plate and the metal shim, cuts out perfectly first time. And you even get all of these, that's a thicker one out of a thicker card. You even get all of the little bits that fall out of them as well that you can use on your projects too. So that is the Cupid collection with the, I love these wings, and that is actually a cut line in the wing, so you could, if depending how you're sticking them down, you could add something more 3D under this piece to make it lift up. And I've actually cut some of these out of leather and they look really cool. Oh, actually I've got this little example here. I'm just making some kind of little hanging decoration thing. So I cut the wings twice out of some white felt, and then I've cut the heart a few times out of some leather and sort of stuck it all together and then sandwiched some twine in there to sort of make a little hanging decoration. But you can see how perfectly from the edges, how perfect it cuts through leather as well. And that is just one pass through the machine and it cuts it perfectly. Yeah, so that is that die set. And actually, some of the words, I know they're not quite... so if you put this word on top of the banner, it's not quite as wide as the banner, but the words work really nicely with the banners as well, just to sort of ground them on your project too. Then I have to say, I think this one is one of my favourites, maybe the Swirls and this one. But it's really, I really love the designs of these, and we've got sort of like a honeycomb pattern and then kind of like a broken chicken wire kind of a sort of pattern, and these pieces that come out as well are really useful for filling in different gaps on your project, so I'll show you that in some of the samples that I've used. And this is a very irregular kind of pattern. You see here there's like two pieces that join together, and it's all sort of, well, I suppose it's kind of uneven because it's kind of mimicking the chicken wire and you've got the little bits that wind around each section and stuff. But it also completely cuts out. So if you've seen the dies that came out in Tonic Craft Kit number 21, they're a similar idea, but they didn't cut around the edges. These ones do cut all the way out of the card, so you get results that look like this. And I mean, look how like thick that cardboard is. You can get really cool looking results in them. I'm thinking, you know those Pebeo fantasy paints that I really love using? Doing this, you wouldn't have to keep stacking up loads of die cuts. You can cut this gorgeous sort of pattern, or even the Birdcages as well, and then fill them full of the paints, and then stick another one on top if you want to, and you could cut the one that goes on top out of normal card. So that's another great thing about the media dies. You don't have to just cut thick stuff. You can just cut like 300 GSM white card and they still work perfectly. You can cut mirror card. I'll show you on a couple of my samples. You can just cut normal card with them. You still need to use the same sandwich of the white, the green and the metal shim, but you can just cut normal, like normal everyday stuff you'd use with your card baking. So you can still use these for all of your cards as well, which is great. And hopefully I'll get a chance to do some videos just using them as if they were normal dies as well. So that is the Distressed Geometric. Both of them are really gorgeous patterns, and you'll see that I've used them on quite a few of my samples. Then we have the Sensational Swirls, which I think is probably going to be one of the most popular, because they're just such gorgeous shapes, and they could be a flourish behind a butterfly, or you can add flowers to them, or I really liked using them with the Birdcages as well. I don't know why, I just feel like they go nicely together. But you could add like little, you know, the little paper flowers that are sort of more 3D, you could add them on there and it kind of acts like a stem. All sorts of things you can do with the swirls. And you get 5 different ones. I think this one is my absolute favourite. I've used that quite a few times. But they've got all sorts of different degrees of swirliness as well. And one of my samples that I'll show you is using the waste. So I took a piece of like the grey board, cut a load of the swirls out because I needed them for other projects, and then I was like, oh, but this piece of card looks really pretty with all the bits cut out of it, so then I used it to create another project. So even the waste from these looks pretty because you've still got the swirly elements that are sort of intertwined with the actual die cut that comes out. So those are really gorgeous dies as well. Then we have Made to Measure, which is perfect for anybody who likes sewing, or any kind of vintagey projects actually, because this kind of thing features a lot in vintage kinds of projects. You've got a gorgeous pair of scissors, which I've used on a project along with the 2 mannequins as well. The only 3 dies out of all these new ones I didn't use were the boot, the button and the coat hanger, but the rest out of all the sets I've used. But these cut really gorgeously too, and I was cutting the scissors out of just 300 GSM white card, and you can actually cut 2 at a time. You could probably get through 3 at a time, but I was just cutting 2 at a time. Yeah, and they just give a really nice focal element actually to your project or design. And I actually was using parts of this die set with my sample, and I did eat, sleep, sew, repeat, but I used the S from the word shop and I used the E from the word dance, and then I just used any random letter sticker that I had that was a W to finish off the sentiment, so you can mix and match everything really well. So that is that set. And also think about if you need a circle aperture through something thick, just that button, you know, it's probably about an inch maybe, yeah, just less than an inch in diameter, but that would make the perfect like hole in something. Say you were making like one of those do not disturb door hanger things or something, and you'd cut it out of the thick cardboard, you could use that to help create a place to hang it with, or you know, something like that. But just having, I mean, that element can be a beautiful little button, but it can also be helpful as a basic shape as well. Then finally we have the beautiful bird cages. I really love the little birds you get in this one. You get one facing each way of the cute little birds without, like they're sort of sitting on something without any legs. And then you get one sort of swallowy, swifty kind of a bird as well. And then you get the 3 gorgeous bird cages. And on the sample I've done, I've used all 3 bird cages because I couldn't pick, and you know, things look good in 3s as well. And you can just sit the little birds. I just sat one at the door of this one. I think I just sat the other one like there. But you can just sort of sit them anywhere. If you wanted to, you could put it behind the cage so it looks like it's inside the cage as well. But those are the 5 new die sets, all in the Media Die range from Tonic. Sorry for my squeaky chair. Okay, then the samples that I've done. Oof. Okay, I'll show you the biggest one first. So this was my one using the bird cages. I actually filmed this one as well, so hopefully at some point when I get around to editing it, there will be a video up for this one. If I zoom out, you're going to see a load of mess on my desk, but because I haven't put it away yet. But this is what I did. This is about a 12-inch square canvas. But see, they work really nicely as a kind of focal element. And for this one, I used the Welcome to the World sentiment. And I have the 3 cages on there. I used the geometric ones to create sort of background interest. Because you see, the great thing about these dies and the swirls and all the little bits that fall out of them, it kind of looks like you used a texture paste through a stencil, but it's way less messy because all you did was die cut it and then stick it on, but it gives the illusion that you used texture paste through a stencil to give that background detail. And yeah, so I stuck all of them down, I stuck everything down and then gessoed it. So if I show you this one, this is what it looked like before I added any colour. It just looked completely white. I mean, it does look quite nice just leaving it white like that, but then I came in with some of the mica mists to begin with. I came in, well, you'll see this in the video when I edit it, but I came in with the purple and the blue mica mists to add some colour to begin with. Then I was using some glitter accents, and I sort of, you can kind of see it on here, so all around these swirls and stuff you can see that turquoise glitter and some of the purple as well. So I squeezed some out near the swirl, and then I sort of just brushed it up against the swirl with my finger, so you get like a concentrated amount near the edge, and then it sort of blends out into the background. I did that in quite a few places, and that was Atlantic Drift and Candy Kisses. And then I also used a few stone drops in the background to give some extra texture. Then I also, the bird cages, I painted with some black ash. Is it black ash? Yes, Black Ash Nouveau Embellishment Mousse. I just painted it to give it a darker colour, and then I came back in with Fairy Wings Dream Drops and added that over the top, because if you saw my Dream Drops video, Fairy Wings, although it looks a very light pinky, almost white colour, when it goes on black it turns out much more pinky purple, as you can see when it hits the light. So I just tapped that on in some places on the Birdcages and on the words, just to give a variation in the colour, and I also added some extra detail with that. I put a bit of stone drop inside the cages so it kind of looks like sawdust or something in their cages, and I added lots of drops of things around. I came back in with some Platinum Nouveau Embellishment Mousse and added some of it on top of the swirls and the birds and stuff to pick them back out, and then I finished it off with quite a few of the Nouveau gems as well. So we've got the amethyst squares and then the water droplets too. I just thought the water droplets would look nice. And then I added lots of sort of splats of the mousses that I was using, and some white gesso and some of the mica mists as well, just to give it some extra colour. So there should be a video up of this at some point. Probably won't be before I put this video up, but yeah, at some point it'll appear, showing you how I did that. Then I've got this sample that I did. So this was using one of the not quite original die sets, because the first one that came out was the Jigsaw, but it's in my original Media Dies video. So this is using, what's it called? I've still got the die set here. It's Cassandra's Ventana die set, and I used it to create a photo frame. So if I just take a random piece of paper, I'll show you how. Obviously you'd cut it to size, but you can slip a photo in and out of the frame. So I added it with 3D foam around those three sides so that you could put a photo inside it really easily as well. And then I was using a lot of the swirling, well, are they called swirling swirls? No. Sensational swirls. A lot of the sensational swirls, and then the Cupid set as well with the hearts. And then I painted everything grey. I used some gunmetal grey Nouveau mousse to add a bit of shine on it, and then I was using the Boulder grey stone drops to add some texture so it kind of looks like stone. And then I added it really 3D on a couple of the heart elements to make them stand out nicely. And then for the sentiment, that smile is actually from the new memory book die sets that Tonic have just brought out. And it says, my first smile word steps, and I just used the word smile, and then I used the negative and then added the positive pieces back in with some silver mirror, which I then added a few swirls in to sort of balance it across the frame as well. And then for the back of it, I just cut a sort of flat-topped triangle, skinny triangle kind of a shape, like you see on the back of photo frames, just to give it something to stand on, and then it just stands up really nicely as a little gift for somebody. So I thought that was really cool. Then I thought I'd decorate like an old record. So this is just one of like a small old record. I actually got them for doing acrylic pouring on, which I have filmed, but I haven't edited yet. Anyway, I added all of the elements on, and the wings on this one are actually from leather. You can still kind of see the texture on them. And then I painted the whole thing in black gesso. So I stuck everything on first and painted it all in black gesso. Then I was experimenting with adding a shimmer powder onto it, but I didn't really like the look of it. So I then ended up spraying a load of water on it and then getting most of the colour off and letting it dry. Then I came back in with a dry brush and some white gesso and just kept coming down from the top, dragging on the white gesso. And I really like the look of it. It's just, so it's all just black and white, but it looks really cool, I think. I just thought that was an interesting, different thing to work on, being a record. But yeah, I just thought it made a nice kind of a project. So that's that one. Then I did this one using the sewing set. What was it called again? Made to Measure. and here I did that eat, sleep, sew, repeat, like I said. And all of the black elements on this, I painted them with black gesso first, then once they were dry I added on some of that Black Ash Nouveau mousse just to give them a little bit of pearlescent finish. And for the background I used red leather and mustard seed Nouveau expanding mousse, scraped them onto one of these like 5x7 canvas covered boards, quite thickly in places. Then I took some light gold hexagon confetti, sprinkled that on in places, and some light gold glitter, and again sprinkled that on in places. Then I took 6 die cuts of the scissors that I cut from white card, and I pressed them into the wet expanding mousse. Then I heated it to get the expanding mousse to expand, to give all of that texture and to make everything stick. And then I came back in with some copper penny Nouveau embellishment mousse and a bit of Indian gold as well, and I just added that to all of the scissors to make them a coppery colour rather than just being the white colour. You could have done that beforehand, but I didn't really think. Yeah, so that was how I created the background, and then I literally just stuck the words on top of it, and I think that gives a cool effect. Just a really quick background actually, because you don't have to wait for any glue to dry because you're sticking the die cuts directly into the wet mousse, which you then have to do is heat it to get it to be dry. So that makes a really quick kind of a project to do. Then this was the one I was saying about using the waste from cutting all of the swirls out of. So this is just a piece of the grey board on the top where I cut all the swirls out of. Then I've got a piece of corrugated card just off a box that I had. I just ripped a piece off of it. You can see there's a fold line in the back of it. And then I just wet it in places and ripped off some of the areas to leave the corrugated part. Then I stuck the swirl piece on top, and then everywhere where you could see the corrugation I left it. But in all the other places I used Dragon Scales Dream Drops and Gold Luxe Dream Drops, and then I used Lady Liberty and Gold Rush Stone Drops, and also that Atlantic Drift glitter accents as well to fill in all the different areas and give lots of colour to it, which I think looks really cool. In some places it's kind of sunk down a little bit, and you can sort of see, because obviously I must have gone over a bit of the corrugated in that place, but I still think it gives a really cool effect, and it's really nice and sturdy as well where it's dried. And then I just added a few extra drops in places, and I finished it off with some of the butterflies from those butterfly strip dies, I think they were called. These ones that look like this, and we had those ones with the dragonflies as well. And then for the sentiment, this is from the new memory book die set from Tonic as well. They come in with the actual square memory book, and I just cut off the my, because it said my journey begins, and cut off the my and used the from the other sentiment, so it says the journey begins instead. And I thought that's just a really pretty kind of, I know I just did it on cardboard, but if you got a shadow box frame, you could put that inside it. You could have a mount around it and then put it in a bigger frame if you wanted to. You could just prop it up anywhere. You know, it's just that kind of, you had fun making it, and I'm sure whoever you gave it to would appreciate it, so it's that kind of a project. Then finally, I think this one is my favourite maybe. I did a sign for your craft room. So I used the craft word from one of those die sets, and then I just used some 3D alphabet stickers that I had, and then I used the arrows to kind of say craft room, it's like it that way. And then I used the hearts and the wings, and I actually put stone drops on the white part of the wings, so it's got a cool texture. I suppose it kind of mimics that feathery texture. And then, yeah, so this was another one like the record where I'd stuck everything down, painted it all black, and then came back in with the colouring. And to begin with, I used some of the fairy wings, and I just smushed it on with my fingers. You can kind of see where some of it is. It's sort of in around this area. I did it in a few different places, but then I added loads of other stuff on top. But I just thought it would be something, a nice underlayer to put on there. And then I used the, what's it called, Oriental Fuchsia, and the original pink, which was called Turkish Rose. Both those mica mists I used on there to give the pinky tones. And then I came back in with some copper penny embellishment mousse to give the coppery tones, and I used a few stone drops to add some texture and dots, and I was splatting stuff on, and then I came back in with some white gesso and splattered that on as well. But this is literally just a piece of cardboard as well that I ripped off so you can see the corrugation underneath, but I just really liked how it turned out. Yeah, so this is another one that's a really affordable thing to make, and you can just have fun making them, which I really love projects like this. So that was the new media die sets from Tonic, and 6 samples that I've made showing you a few ways of how you can use them, and hopefully, I always say this, but hopefully I will have enough time to come back and play with these and do some actual cards using them, so showing you how, even though it's a media die, card makers can still buy them just for using on their cards as well. You don't have to cut thick things out and be all messy and painty and inky and everything. You can just make more clean and simple cards with them as well. But yeah, I thought showing you an up-close look at them whilst I have some projects would be a good idea. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. So thank you for watching. Bye!